Well, hello and welcome to Split Informed and Split Smart. I am your host today with Carl Roberts and excited to be here for our show on the WGSN-DB Going Solo Network. The intention behind the intention behind Split Informed and Split Smart is to help all couples, amicable or hostile, to more easily reach positive, equitable, and peaceful agreements in their divorce. I believe that everyone in their right mind, or not, deep down wants peace, love, and equality in their post divorce life. And that no one person should be able to deny that from the other or their children. That is the principle upon which SplitSmart was founded, a tool that helps everyone, regardless of emotional or mental state, better stay on course for a peaceful and more joyous ever after. Before solving problems, you must first understand their root causes. For divorce, we know that the single difference between a good and ugly divorce is simply the presence of a bad actor. Bad actors can be one or both, man or woman, lawyer or litigant. We know that bad actors are typically good people who have often gotten tripped up by their emotions, bad advice from friends, family, or a lawyer, and often a personality disorder of being a narcissist or a borderline personality. I'm excited to have Karen McMahon, a divorce coach and founder of Journey Beyond Divorce in Florida. Although she is in Florida, Journey Beyond Divorce has coaches in several states and is working with clients across the country, probably some outside the U.S. So welcome, Karen, and thanks for being here.
Hey, Carl. Thanks for inviting me. I'm excited about our conversation.
Am I saying your last name right, McMahon?
McMahon, nice and easy. Looks
Okay.
harder than it is.
It seemed like I'm trying to put an extra N in there in the middle, so I'm trying not to do that. So very good. Well, Karen, pleasure to see you. You're always looking so fresh and alive and vibrant.
Thank you. It's nice to be down in Florida where it's warm when the rest of the country is cold.
Yeah, we've been out here in Colorado. We've been enjoying a very mild, fall. So absolutely. So Karen, I don't know that much of your backstory, but I do know some that you, like a lot of us, are in this business because we had our own divorce journey, and then we kind of came out of that unsatisfactory situation and decided we wanted to help other people avoid that same type of peril. Would that be about right? Is that what brought you here?
Yeah, I went through a very long and tumultuous and high conflict divorce, and when I emerged, I was a different person, and my career no longer fit me. So I started wondering, after such a significant transformation, what was my purpose in the world? I was raising two very young children, but I had always worked, and so that's how I found my way into coaching. And then once I got certified as a life coach, it was pretty clear what community of people I wanted to work with. Coaching is all about transition, getting people from where they are to where they want to be. And divorce is the most devastating and overwhelming and upending transition that any of us go through. And so, and I also was a child of divorce. And so I felt like, okay, I'm pretty well designed to focus on this. And it became quite my passion because I emerged such a better version of myself, in my opinion, that I wanted to create something to invite people who are really scared, resistant, reactive, to see that there is a silver lining if you choose to look for it.
And what was your pre-divorce career?
Oh God, I had many careers. The one I was in right before, I was selling commercial printing, which is very funny because it was a dying industry, and coaching was an industry practically in its embryonic stages. And so I needed to jump ship from that industry anyway. And that was back in 2010. So it's really been an amazing
So how long from start to finish with court? How long were you?
Oh, 3.5 years.
Okay. That's nothing.
Uh,
we all have, it's everything to each of us individually, for sure.
Right.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah. So my children were barely in grade school, and my situation included a lot of time in court, a lot of money in court. It included CPS got involved, the police got involved. There was it was pretty jolting and rocky. And then I walked away tens and tens of thousands of dollars in debt with really starting over from scratch. And even so, my feeling at the end of it was, if I had to do it all over again to become the person I became, it was all worthwhile.
Well, I'm very admirable that you can kind of look at it that way. I mean, I certainly very proud of myself of trying to finding a silver lining in this and doing some good from it, making lemonade out of lemons type of thing.
Mm-hmm.
I don't, and I guess, it's all God's plan and all that other fun stuff. But yeah, I don't know that I put it in the perspective of worthwhile. And another piece of my learnings over life is, again, you don't know true joy until you've experienced sorrow, right? And so that is, sorrow is absolutely a part of everyone's life, and so, but coming through our experience, so you are helping people as a divorce coach, and I really wish that, mine started off in 2009, and I really wish there was such thing as a divorce coach back then. Because I could have certainly saved a lot of money. I was in court for about 9 years, and
Wow,
several $100,000. And my boys were 5 and 7 at the time when it all kind of started. And yeah,
that's quite the marathon, Carl.
Yeah.
And
so you certainly drive some of my philosophy that you kind of hear even in the preamble. Again, the single difference between a good and bad divorce is the bad actor, and it can be one or both. And that those bad actors are usually people gotten tripped up. Good people are gotten tripped up by their emotions or bad advice or again, personality disorders. At least that's in my philosophy. Well, how would you?
Yeah, I think that a pretty solid statement is, most of us don't show up as our best self while going through divorce. There's fear, there's uncertainty, there's anger, there's bitterness, there's unforgiveness, there's judgment. And all of these things cloud our thinking and our behavior at a time when our thinking really needs to be crystal clear and our behavior needs to be focused on what we want, like who we want to be and where we want to end up, especially when children are involved. And yet all of that emotion invites an emotional fog and a reactivity that pulls us further away from our actual goal. And that's really kind of foundationally what we do, is invite our clients to take their eyes off of their ex and their ex's behavior. It's like, yeah, we know that story. We know all the reasons he or she is X, Y, and Z and what they did and how they're wrong. And we're not saying yes or no to that, but that's not where any of the power lies. Divorce is, there's so much going through the legal process of divorce that's just completely out of your control. And so most people feel very disempowered, and our desire is to help them feel deeply empowered by focusing on that which they have control over, which is their thoughts, their actions, their reactions, their choices, their desire to get clear on who they want to be going through and emerging from the divorce.
Yeah, and that part of my philosophies as well is just, again, in all that is that, one of the most important things for anybody to do, amicable or hostile, is that they got to first kind of keep their emotions in check, right? And so they got to control their emotions so their emotions don't control them.
Yeah, and I think it's when you start peeling back the onion of that, it's very complex. And so I'll use as an example, we tend to work with a lot of high conflict divorces. And so, you could say to someone, it'd really be much better if you could keep your emotions in check. But they came from a family of yelling and screaming, or they came from a family of control and manipulation, or they came from a parent who's got a personality disorder or an addiction, and another parent who is deeply codependent and has given themselves up. And so, we're blueprinted. Our first intimate relationship, in many ways, blueprints a script for how we're going to enter and engage in intimate relationship. And we see this over and over and over again. And my saying is, you don't lick it off the grass. Like, you don't just show up behaving this way because you can't control your emotions. You behave a certain way because it's a learned behavior, even if it's an unconscious learned behavior. And so the beauty of getting this kind of support going through divorce is that you can start paying attention to, what are my patterns? And so someone might say, oh, I'm definitely conflict avoidant. I always shut down. I give people, the what seems like the silent treatment, even if that's not what I'm trying to do, because when dad got angry and there was conflict, I'd have to like run for the hills, or I gave 200%. I give 200% in every one of my relationships, and then people walk all over me. Well, you're not supposed to give 200%. You're supposed to give 100%. And if you're giving 100% and you're not getting that back, that's your red flag. But if in every relationship you had that codependent type of behavior, if I just love you a little bit more, then you'll love me back. Well, then that's your part, and let's take a look at that, and let's refine that, let's heal that, so that when you emerge, whether it's just your relationship with your children and your family of origin, or if you decide to have intimate relationship, that you will be a better version of yourself, that you'll do relationship better. It could be communication, it could be trust, it could be how you spend money, it could be so many different things. And so our desire is to help our clients find, what are your patterns? Where do you see you played a role in the dissolution of your marriage? And one of the things I see over and over again is, how goes the marriage, so goes the divorce. And so nobody changes their behavior. That everyone's doing the same dysfunctional dance through the divorce until somebody opens their eyes, wakes up, and starts doing it differently. And I think that's where you and I are aligned in our mission, is to say there is a better way. And in order to get to that better way, you have to first raise your conscious awareness to what you're doing.
Conscious awareness. Okay, so it certainly comes with introspection, right? So
Yeah.
you got to really look, and and with the help of coach, or without, I mean, you got to be honest with yourself, and that's not necessarily easy for most of us. I wouldn't imagine.
It's definitely the more.
None of us think that we're the bad actor, for instance, but we all got a part in it.
Right. And being introspective and willing to be vulnerable and look at your own shortcomings, wounds, insecurities, judgments, that takes courage. That's courageous. And that's hard work. A lot of times we'll have clients who start working with us, and then they hit that edge where they're really going to start digging deep. And all of a sudden, they don't have the finances, they don't have the time, and they step away from it. And they continue a pattern that they did before. And so it's those who stick with it, who push through the discomfort of doing something new and different, that really see a huge transformation.
So, generically, what's the difference between men and women? I mean, where are we more likely to trip up, and where are women more likely to trip up, and How do you treat men and women differently? I assume you got to.
Not really. I think that, everyone shows up differently, Carl, and I think that men tend to talk more about their thoughts and we get to the feelings, whereas, women, we're just raised to share more about our emotions. I think men really enjoy coaching, perhaps even over therapy, because there's an action plan, because they can fix it. They can actually roll up their sleeves and do something. But I get asked that question a lot. There's not a lot of coaching companies out there that coach men, and we do. We've got about 35% of our client base is men. And the truth is, the person who comes to the table willing to do the work is one kind of person, regardless of their gender. And the person who looks at their soon-to-be ex, points the finger and says, "You're the problem," regardless of their gender, that's the other person. And so I would say I would be reticent to pigeonhole how men show up. I think that we could talk about, well, what's an issue that men struggle with? And at the top of the list would be parenting time. I think that our courts, even though they've come a long way, a healthy dad, like not an abusive dad, a healthy dad who wants to be engaged, but maybe wasn't so engaged because he was the primary breadwinner and he was out working and making sure that he could financially take care of his family, can feel very reactive and fearful that he's going to be portrayed as not having been there and lose time with his family. And then if that same professional man is capable of sitting at a negotiation table and negotiating, he could present as very aggressive to his wife, even though he's just coming from fear and passion and desire to make sure that he has his fair parenting time. And so in a situation like that, we can really help them to see that their way of communicating, while very effective in the boardroom, might not be so effective at home. And so it's those kinds of finesses that we can work with them to acknowledge and validate, what they've done. And that, yeah, even if you weren't a 50-50 parent because you were out making a living, you can be. Let's look, can you be? That's actually a question we ask too. Like, if your job demands all of that, while your heart desires to be a 50-50 parent, does your time commitment allow for it? And so we work through those kinds of issues with dads more often, and with women, unlike dads, we might be spending more time working on the concept of going back into the workforce and what that looks like, and the fear that he's going to walk away with all the money and you're going to be screwed, and how true is that? And so there's a lot of stories between our ears, fear stories that aren't true, that don't serve us. And so we really help people to poke around at the stories that cause their reactivity so that they can bring the temperature down, access their rational mind, be more effective.
Yeah, I'm certainly a believer that, fear is one of the driving emotions here. It really sends most of us off that deep end.
Yep.
Sometimes it's warranted, sometimes it's not, type thing. But yeah, I mean, as a father, the reason we were in court for so long was because I was trying to be moved out of my children's lives. And so in any normal person going through that, you don't have a normal reaction. Yeah, I mean, it's hard.
Right.
It's certainly the toughest thing in life, and so you touched on a few things here that divorce is often about two things: money and kids, right? And in part of, in more of my vernacular instead of yours, but in trying to keep control of your emotions, so you don't get the commotions, is first of all just knowing what you want. and it's starting to get organized. It's all that, it's what SplitSmart was founded about, just getting yourself organized. From the money, figure out what your assets and debts are and your incomes, and, get it organized. And then that organization informs you, and you can start to, more practically have a plan as opposed to emotionally have a plan. And I think very much the same is for children as well. The system, by and large, in most states, determines child support based upon how many overnights you have with the child. And I think that's just a hard system. I understand the logic how it got there. But the amicable couples that kind of reach these agreements, the amicable plans, they just have made these two important decisions that, although innate, quite often in innate, they decide they were going to disconnect money and time, custody and child support, to solve both more easily.
Right.
And then they just want to support their child, but they don't really want to support their ex through child support. And so just by making those distinctions, anyway, I'm talking more about me.
Well,
but,
can I speak to that too?
Please,
so because
please.
I think that it's so complex, and we can't begin to tease it all apart here. But I had one fella, he just a doll, a great dad. He was I'm pretty sure he was a CFO. He made very good money, and he was really resistant to pay his soon-to-be ex child support. And it was her decision, and it was, the whole thing was, of course, hard and hurtful. And part of what we ended up talking about is, what's the purpose of child support? And when I started drawing a picture for him, so when they're with you, they're going to be in this gorgeous neighborhood in this big, beautiful house. And then your children without any child support are going to go to this kind of crappy end of town. And so child support isn't about filling, your ex's pocket. It's about a transitionary, it's about giving the children something that's maybe not equal, but not like crazy. And in that case, he was really able to wrap his brain around it. Now maintenance is another story. But I think that with each of these things, every situation is different, and it's and that's what we do. I wasn't telling him what to do. I was drawing a picture, and then he was able to adjust it. And then, what do you desire for your children from your heart? And he was able to then go back to the negotiation table and really kind of streamline the final decisions and the settlement. And so I think that what you do is so important. Information is power. You're in a system where you can feel powerless. So to use something like SplitSmart, where you can take all of your financial information, you can organize it, you can categorize it, you can gain clarity about what you have, what you need, what you owe, and go to the table negotiating with all of those facts being so clear. It's brilliant. It really is. And it's
Clear
what
and
people
transparent.
need.
And transparency between the parties, I just think, is so important.
Absolutely. I mean, the lack of transparency just creates more chaos. It creates more money in the attorney's pocket. And so, yeah. And the same thing on the shared parenting side. The clearer that each party can get about what's going to work, hopefully the thought is what's going to work for the kids. And so if you have an 18-month-old, you're going to be dealing with that child differently than if you have, a 12-year-old. And then part of it is the 18-month-old isn't going to be 18 months old forever. So you can't negotiate everything based on them being 18 months
Right.
old. You have to have, and so a lot of times that's what we're doing. We're saying, okay, well, for how long and how many stages do you think that child needs? And so all of those things are meant to help our clients detach from the emotional charge around children and money, right? These two big emotional charges, and begin to think clearly about who do I want to be? What do I want for my child? What do I need? financially. I was just talking to someone today.
Hey, let me tell you what, let me real quick, that might be a good place to interrupt you. We need to do our commercial break. Real quick, we get talking. I do this all the time. So real quickly, we'll take a break. This is Carl Roberts with Split Informed and Split Smart with my guest, Karen McMahon. McMahon, sorry. Founder of Divorce Coach and founder of Journey Beyond Divorce. We'll be right back. Thank you.
Thank you.
When parents get divorced and become involved in the family court system, there are no winners. Everybody loses, especially the children. I know, because my custody battle lasted years, was completely unnecessary, and financially devastating. That experience inspired SplitSmart. SplitSmart is designed to empower both parents by giving them the structure they need to stay on course for a more peaceful and respectful co-parenting future. For less than amicable couples, our unique line item negotiation approach helps soften sometimes emotional stances into child-centered agreements that both parents can live with. Do you want your children to thrive and grow up with healthy, loving relationships with both parents? How much easier would it be if you could bypass the conflict and create a clear, supportive, and comprehensive co-parenting plan and schedule that's tailored specifically for your family? Can you imagine what it would be like if there were no arguments about money or child support? If any of this appeals to you, if you want to minimize the expense and drama of divorce, do yourself and your children a big favor and use SplitSmart to craft your co-parenting and support plans. And as an added benefit, even if you've done your best and still can't get all the way there, SplitSmart will have your information well organized, so a skilled mediator or family lawyer can efficiently help your family cross the finish line. Visit splitsmart.com today to get started on creating a brighter and more joyous tomorrow for you and your kids.
All right, we're back. It's Carl Roberts with Split Informed and Split Smart with my guest, Karen McMahon, with the Journey Beyond Divorce. Karen, one of the things I love about, I'm not making any money at this, but yet one of the things I love about this journey I'm on, this both entrepreneurial journey and as well as life journey, is just to really just having the pleasure of just working with other professionals like yourself that we're aligned in so much, but you have your different perspectives. And because as I say about my philosophies and my approaches, I really love the interaction and trying to tweak those perspectives and those nuances where, because my perspective is not right for everybody. And I love your perspective kind of coming back and pushing back a little bit to, give it a little bit more nuance and a little bit more color to it.
Yeah.
So thank you for that.
Yeah, you're welcome.
But just kind of going back to this, because we'll stick with the child part of things, because that's really what I think most of our heart is in divorce. We don't want children in the middle of this. Children have the right to love both parents. That's where they're going to thrive when they have two healthy relationships in their lives. And so often that you got parents, one or both, seeking that emotional justice or some sort of vengeance or whatever other motivation is in there that, kind of sends them down that unhealthy path. And I just.
If I could, I was speaking to a client earlier today, and sometimes, like today, she was telling me how she was talking to her boys. And when I invited her into a different way, a way that took the focus off of dad, right? So she's in a long drawn out court situation, and there's anger and frustration. And how do you talk to your boys about whatever it is, the schedule, decisions they have to make, challenges that they're having at one or the other parent's house? How do you do that without
Demeaning.
discussing any negatives about the other parent? And and so often my clients like, I don't know, I've got nothing. Like, how do I do that? And I think that talk about turning lemons into lemonade. I think there's such an incredible opportunity going through divorce and even co-parenting post-divorce, where you can talk to the children in a way that no matter what they're dealing with, they're growing through this too. And so a lot of parents tell rather than ask. And so the first rule is, don't assume It's been a long time since you're 11 years old. You don't know the way your 11-year-old is looking at the situation. So ask. Let's say your 11-year-old doesn't want to go to mommy's. I don't want to go to mommy's. And you're assuming, well, it's because of X, Y, and Z. Well, when you start asking, well, what's that about? And how do you feel? And, what would you want to say to mommy? And what's the outcome you desire? And what happens if mommy gets mad? And what could you say then? And all of a sudden you're getting this child to really find their voice and talk about their fears, because what parents do is they ask leading questions. Are you afraid to go to mommy's? Is mommy so it's like you're implanting all of these thoughts in your kid, or worse yet, you're just telling them, this is what you should do. This is what happens. I know that mommy's really difficult and she has a short temper. Don't do any of that. Don't do any of that. One of my favorite sayings is that every upset is a setup. And so use every opportunity to the setup is personal work. And trust me, your children at a very young age can learn emotional intelligence. They can begin to understand what their fear is, what their insecurity is, what their anger is about. I had once had my daughter and I said, well, what do you want to say to daddy? And she said, well, if I say anything, he's going to just yell at me. Now, my ex was a little bit of a yeller. And we had this whole conversation about, well, what if you just said it because it's your truth and you knew daddy was going to yell? Like, what happens when daddy yells? Nothing. Okay, so what's more important? Speaking your truth. And so in these kinds of conversations, we're inviting our children into getting to know themselves better and beginning to behave differently without ever bashing, trashing, putting down the other parent. So whether you're in an amicable situation where you would also then, say, gosh, and mommy does this for you and you love baking with her or whatever the case may be, even if it's high conflict, just say nothing. Just use the lesson. And so there's so much that parents can do, both going through the divorce process and certainly post-divorce, to support their children, regardless of amicable or higher conflict.
Well said. Well said. And when is there, this is kind of a leading question, but is there a tool? I mean, okay, SplitSmart's that tool, but with is there a practice or a tool or an approach that one parent, again, when we're less than amicable, when we start to talk about custody and child support, we start from an emotional position. Mm-hmm. And so that's a self-centered type approach. And one of the things that I love about SplitSmart and that I did was I take this belief that a written position softens a verbal stance.
So what's the can you just say in a sentence or two what the I'm so familiar with the financial side of it, but what is the
parenting side?
The parenting tool?
Yeah, so there's two parts of it. There's parenting. There's the parenting plan, which includes schedule, as well as then there's child support, which is not your traditional child support at all. On the parenting plan, it's basically a big template that, the 4 areas of decision making, 4 different types of schedules, being summer, school, vacation, holiday, and about 15 miscellaneous things. And you always add another thing to it yourself. And it's just a template header, so in that it's a header for every topic. But it's basically approach it like a line item negotiation. For each individual item, it's a line item negotiation. So an amicable couple can probably sit down and power through it in, in half an hour or an hour, and just, and answer a lot of questions, because while they're in good shape, let's go ahead and get some rules in place, so next time when we're not in such good shape, we got some rules to fall back on. And but it's more importantly just for that less than amicable couple. So in that, so if they're doing this written position, if they're doing this line item negotiation, again, the philosophy is a written position softens a verbal stance. As we start custody conversations from an emotional standpoint, we're saying he's got to do this or she's got to do that. I want this, I want that, and it's all me or her and not the child. So if we write down that position, most of us don't want our words to betray us. And so when we write down our positions, and the other, as well as the mediator, may see those words, both will see those words, I'm not in fear of that. I don't want my ex to be able to say, see, he's in this for himself. And so by that very logic, I'm going to soften my stance to make sure that it is really kind of focused on the children.
Well, I would argue that there's plenty of people who wouldn't soften their stance, and those are your highest conflict. But however, I also want to say something else. Even the amicable couples, one of the things that is so important is there's so much you don't think about. So like you were saying, decision making, who's going to make decisions around religion, school, therapists, physical stuff, doctors. So it's kind of like when you're partners and you're just parenting in a whole marriage, when it comes up, you do it. But when you have to put the plan together, there's so much that you don't think about. So I love the structure of what you're saying, because even for the amicable couple, it gets them thinking. And then even around schedule, right? So there are 3-day weekends. How many 3-day weekends are there? There's the winter holidays, the spring break, the summer break. What do we want to do about children's birthdays? What do we want to do about? So there are all these different things that people could forget to cover. And while a good matrimonial attorney is going to make sure that you cover it all, I've spoken to so many people post-divorce with parenting agreements that had a lot of holes in them. And then I love what you said about agreement. Let's decide what our agreements are, so that we're not just putting the schedule together. We're not just agreeing on who does what, but then when X happens, we agree to blank. And I think that that's really helpful too. I have a couple of websites that I offer clients when they're trying to figure out that 50-50, 60-40, 70-30, whatever it is. And based on, who's traveling or out of state or far away. And so there's a lot of resources out there to help. It sounds like yours is organized in a way that really enables people to use it together as a worksheet, which I think is really important.
Yeah, and even if a written position doesn't soften a verbal stance, at the very least, is putting down your position. Mm-hmm. And so, and then because again, so often we deal with people moving their position all around. Just because, I'll do this. Well, no, that's not what I said. That type of thing.
Right. And
so just getting those positions clear, transparent, is again half the battle.
Yep.
And and then when you talk about, for instance, 50-50, 60-40, 70-30, all that is really, again, that kind of relates to somewhat of a constraint about child support and tying money into all that. at least that's where most people's perspectives are, or a lot of people's perspectives are. And, the chore is, while I'm an advocate for 50-50, it just doesn't work for, even the most amicable couples, so some of them, that's not what they want, or.
There's always a lot of emotion around the kids. And I think, I completely agree with you. One of the things we do is we offer a rapid relief call to anybody who's struggling. So when they hear me speak or listen to our podcasts and they feel like, God, I'm doing all these things on my own and I'm still struggling. I'm not happy with how I'm showing up, or it's just going sideways. They get to jump on the call with me or one of the 5 other coaches on my team and get a free coaching call where they get a sense of how we work and what we do. And it's totally free. So they're going to walk away with a lot of value. And then if they decide to work with us, great. And if they don't, then it's our gift to them and they get to kind of have some clarity and some action steps to walk away with. So we feel like that's the best thing that we can offer people who are kind of knee deep in struggle and need some guidance.
And so, like I said, your gift to them, and hopefully part of that gift is that they're receiving some calm. That's where I wish for a lot of parents just to find some calm and peace and in the middle of that storm, that emotional storm, if nothing else. So I think that's beautiful. That really is beautiful. But there's 50 layers of this onion that could be peeled back, and there's a lot of different aspects to it, and it is just I really wish there was divorce coaching was a thing when mine started 10, 12 years ago, and I really think, well, who knows? Because there's always that bad actor on the other side. But
right.
I'd really like to think that we could have avoided hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Yeah. I agree. I wish there was, or I knew of back when I was going through it, and now it's more and more prevalent. And there's a lot of wonderful people out there doing the work and supporting, especially women, some others supporting men through this. And it's important because it's going to help our future generations.
And I think men are historically more resistant to therapy, those type of support conversations where women are more open to getting support, emotional support. I'm telling you, brothers, guys, you need to get a good divorce coach in your corner and pull back from that lawyer, rely on that divorce coach that can help you talk through things a little bit more sanely.
Right. And a lot of times people feel like, oh my God, I can't afford that too. And it's like, but you're going to call your attorney for like 2 or 3 times as much per hour. And you're going to complain about your ex, and they're not schooled and they're not going to be able to do anything. And then you're going to get your bill and you're going to be mad at them because where's my money going? And so we always say, you talk to your attorney about legal strategy, and you talk to your coach about your day-to-day struggles and what you're dealing with emotionally, and you'll save a lot of money, and you'll save just everybody in the family a lot of heartache.
And one thing that, again, I kind of come back to is people, if they're in the right mind, just think about what your goals are. It's focus on the future, not focus on the fight. And, where do you want to be a year from now or 5 years from now or at graduation? I mean, you want to be able to share be in the same space without making everybody uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And you want your children to thrive in the love and support of both parents. So anyway, I'm preaching to the choir. So, Karen, we're going to have to wrap up today.
Well, I want to thank you for everything that you do. I think it's an important resource that you're providing people. So thank you.
I want to thank you for all that you do, for being out there for all your clients, and for help bringing more divorce coaching to more people. Because it's just I feel, I got to find my gratitudes in different areas these days. And I'm very grateful to be working with people like yourself. So thank you. If
I could just plug my company is Journey Beyond Divorce. I have a podcast And rapidreliefcall.com is where you can go for that free call. So you can listen to our podcast series, or you can get a free call.
All right, Karen. Well, that's beautiful. Thank you so much. Well, thank you, everybody, for tuning in and listening. This is Carl Roberts with Split Informed and SplitSmart. My beautiful guest, Karen McMahon, with Journey Beyond Divorce. Thank you so much. Have a great day.
Bye-bye.